So thanks everyone for joining today for a conversation with Jen McCarron and Barb Harwood of Thunderbird Entertainment. And thanks again to SumZero for hosting this. And I'll kick it off with a couple disclaimers. First, any statements, by the way, I don't know if I introduced myself. I'm Cullen Rose from Stoic Point. Stoic Point is a small concentrated investment firm. And we really focus on higher quality companies and companies suffering from what we think are pretty big misunderstandings. And so I'll kick it off with a couple disclaimers. First, any statement or commentary from Stoic Point is not an advertisement and does not constitute an offer of any security or investment advisory service. And then second, a disclaimer from Thunderbird. This event may contain forward-looking statements within the meaning of the applicable securities law. Management are providing cautionary statements identifying important factors that could cause the actual results to differ materially from those projected in forward-looking statements. Any statements that express or involve discussions as to expectations, beliefs, plans, objectives, assumptions, or future events or performance are not historical facts and may be forward-looking and may involve estimates, assumptions, and uncertainties, which could cause actual results or outcomes to differ materially from those expressed in the forward-looking statements. Okay, the context of what's going on with Twitter and Elon, I'm not sure how these disclaimers are going to protect investors, but they're nevertheless important. So excited to have this conversation with Jen and Barb, the CEO and CFO of Thunderbird. Thunderbird is a Canadian production studio that produces animated, unscripted and scripted television and film content for major broadcasters and streamers. And anybody who's tuned into this event who has some young children who's probably already seen some Thunderbird work somewhere, perhaps unknowingly. I know that I made the mistake of telling my 4-year-old that Spidey and Friends, the next season is airing, I think starting in August. Now, every day he comes and asks me if it's August yet. So there are quite a few shows out there that Thunderbird has helped produce that I'm sure you've heard of, as well as their own content. And as I mentioned, at Stoic Point, we spent a lot of time looking for high quality businesses with significant misunderstanding, and we think Thunderbird squarely fits this bill. We think it has the opportunity to grow north of 20% the next several years, yet it trades for what we think is less than 6 times EBITDA. It has net cash, it generates free cash flow. And while we aren't even the first investor on SumZero to post about the company, we still think it's undiscovered and hope that today's event will highlight the opportunity for maybe some new investors. So if anybody who's joined has any questions along the way, feel free to enter them in the chat and I'll try to work them in, but this will just be an interactive Q&A between myself and Jen and Barb and anybody else who has a question. So thanks again, Jen and Barb, for joining. I know you guys are pretty busy these days, so we appreciate the time.
Appreciate you having us here. This is excellent. Thank you, Cullen.
Well, great, Jen. Why don't you start with just a brief background on Thunderbird? I know it didn't get to the public markets via traditional IPO, and there was some M&A involved in the early days. And so maybe just help us a little bit about the background of the company, how it was formed, how you got to public markets, and then also as well as kind of when you joined and the roles you've had.
Yeah, well, I think it might be good if Barb kicks us off since she was at the very beginning of Thunderbird. And then I can join when I, came to play a part in the company. So Barb, why don't you start and I'll jump in when I came in.
Yeah, sure. Thunderbird started in 2003. I joined in 2005, not so long after everybody got together. It was started by 4 founders who were looking to help Canadian companies basically finish their financing. So we started out as a distributor for Canadian productions, and we would come in and be sort of last in, the last 10%, and take those distribution rights and be first out. By way of background, I actually have a film degree and worked on set for many years, and then went back and got my CPA and articled at a firm that specialized in entertainment before jumping back into the entertainment world, first with a smaller factual company and then with Thunderbird. Over the first number of years at Thunderbird, we took a lot of Canadian content and we brought it into the States, into syndication. We looked for kind of big brands and series with like lots of episodes that we could distribute. We always maintained a little bit of a footprint in production, at least 1 or 2 a year. In 2010, we had our main shareholder now, Frank Justra, join us. He put some money into the company so that we could go buy the rights to the film Blade Runner. And at that point, he became one of our largest shareholders and continues to be on the board to this day as the director and one of our largest shareholders and biggest supporters. At that time, around that time, we decided to start bulking up and we started buying production companies. So in 2015, we acquired about four different production companies, 2 of which were highly successful, one of which was GPM, Great Pacific Media, that is now our Unscripted division, and Atomic Cartoons, which is our animation division. And that's when Jen joined. So
Yeah,
up to you.
that's great. Thanks, Barb. And I should highlight Frank Justra started Lionsgate Entertainment. And so, very well seasoned. Our chair, Marnie Weishofer, was his CFO. They started it in Canada and successfully transitioned to become one of the next major global studios, Lionsgate Entertainment. So we've got some great people on our board. They see the same trajectory here at Thunderbird. When Barb acquired Atomic, I was running Atomic. And we started out as 14 people. We're now over 1,400 today. The growth has been exponential, not because of me, but because of the amazing teams. Shortly before going public, the board asked me to step forward and be CEO of all of Thunderbird. When we were going public, Frank had a SPAC that made it easy just to back into being public. We did a $10 million raise and we kept going. So our first EBITDA back in 2019 was around 10 million. And we're now almost at 20 million today and growing. I started out after doing a journalism degree and going to film school. I started out right at the beginning on the show's reboot, first computer animated television series. It quickly found a passion for creating an environment where nobody felt like a number, where everyone felt safe and honored, and where excellent work could happen. That still drives me today. And so we are building a major global studio. That's our passion. And I believe we're well on our way. So that's a little bit of the history there, Cullen.
Great. And those, maybe a few people a bit still unfamiliar with the business, could either one of you just provide a quick overview of the various business lines today and even the representative customers you're selling to or partnering with?
Absolutely. So the 2 main drivers of our business are Great Pacific Media, the factual division, Atomic Cartoons, our kids and family division, and then we opportunistically look at scripted. We take calculated swings. We are growing in terms of volume. We've got offices in Los Angeles, increasing presence in Los Angeles, Vancouver, Ottawa, and Toronto. And every year we've been sort of, 40% revenue increase, 30% EBITDA increase. We have great cash flow and we are debt free, which allows us to be nimble in these times.
Got it. And you have really kind of 3 economic models: a service business, and then owned IP and partnership. Maybe Barb, you could just touch on the dynamics of those 3 different models in terms of revenue recognition and maybe cash flows, how that works.
Yeah, sure. The service business is one that is mainly in the animation division, and it's when a client comes to us with a property and asks us to produce their property. Increasingly, as time goes on, we're not just taking bits and pieces of it, but we're just doing it from tip to tail, and we're highly involved in even the development of the client's property. The way the revenues and expenses get recognized on service production is on a percentage of completion basis. So as we do the work, we recognize the revenue and the related expenses. It's also cash flowed throughout by the client, and we get a really good producer fee for producing that work. So it's got good cash flow, and it helps our IP business, which I'll talk about in a minute. Then we have our original content business, which means that we own the project. We own the copyright of it. We take it from, initial development. We might do a deal with like on Last Kids on Earth in our animated division, we did a deal with the writer of Last Kids on Earth, which is a book. And we took that project and we made a TV series from it. We sold it to Netflix, and we retain all the sort of worldwide rights, excluding whoever we sell it to first. So it stays in our library the whole, over a number of years. We get a producer fee while producing it. We also essentially fully finance the show before it gets into production on our IP shows. We might have a 10%, what's called a 10% gap. So 90% of it would be financed with third-party money, and we might put 10% in. And for that 10%, we would get a portion of distribution rights that we could then go and sell it. So the way those get recognized is as the work is completed, it stays on the balance sheet as an asset, just like you're building a building or any other kind of asset. Once we've delivered it to the initial client, that's when we recognize the revenue and we recognize the expenses as an amortization. So what we do is we take that particular project, and because of our experience, we know how different projects sell, and we predict what the revenue stream will be in the future. And then we take the amortization in relation to that. So for instance, in our Unscripted division, we do a show called Highway Through Hell and Heavy Rescue 401. It's lots of car crashes and tow truck drivers and that. We're in our 11th or 12th season with Highway Through Hell, and about our 6th season for Heavy Rescue. These sell really well internationally. So we're going to choose a lower amortization rate for the first year of recognition for these shows because it's got a longer tail in terms of international revenues in the future. And so it will be a higher margin. Same with animation, which can travel, which lends itself to consumer products and distribution. It will have a lower amortization rate as well. So in the initial year, so it will have a higher gross margin as well. And then some of our other shows will be a little bit different. It's a whole mix. It's kind of in our IP division, it's kind of a portfolio approach where each show is its own business model, and depending on that product and how well it might sell internationally, it kind of shows differently up on the financial statements. And then our third kind of model is kind of a hybrid of the two. It's called partnership model. It's recognized as a service, so it's over percentage of completion, but we get a heftier producer fee because we're taking it right from the initial development all the way through. We're very highly involved in our clients with developing it, and we get something on the back end. So usually it's a show that has consumer products potential, and so we'll get some back end on that. So that's kind of the medium portion.
Great. Okay. So to summarize, service business you recognize along the way as you're doing the work, but IP deliveries you recognize the quarter in which you deliver that project.
Exactly. And so that sometimes can cause our financial statements to be lumpy from quarter to quarter.
Right. Great. I think it's a good overview. So Jen, you've already mentioned once on this call, you have an off-stated goal of being a major global studio. Today you are, Thunderbird's is a sub $200 million market cap company. It's generating about $20 million of Canadian dollars of EBITDA. What does, in your mind, what is a major global studio? What does that look like? And what inning are you in today in that journey?
Well, great question. So I think, we want to, we're shooting for the moon. That we think there's no reason we couldn't be the next Disney or Lionsgate. So we're increasing our ownership in IP. We'll have some great announcements coming. Unfortunately, we can't announce everything as they happen because we have to work with our buyers. They don't want it out in the marketplace too soon, and whatnot. We are, looking to have more of an international presence, be it through building organically and or M&A. which is underway. Our key buyers like Netflix, Disney, HBO Max, Lego, Discovery, would love us to have ownership overseas as they need to increase their subscriptions. They would love to just work with Thunderbird and have our presence there, and we can turn on more IP that's native to those regions and then run that IP through our burgeoning consumer products and distribution division. Frank Juster, again, who started Lionsgate Entertainment, is steadfast that it will happen. It's the law of averages, he always says. Just keep getting up to plate, keep hitting singles, keep hitting doubles, you will hit that grand slam. So we are staying the course. We're not looking to do a roll-up strategy. We have great organic growth. We're looking for that strategic build towards becoming a major global studio that owns its own content, sets it up, and then monetizes it on the back end, exploits any consumer products, merchandise, all cross-media exploitation. And then, eventually we will hit that, grand slam. What inning are we in? I'd say we're in the bottom of the fourth.
Got it. You, and so I guess maybe talk about the next couple of years. What I think maybe it's largely around organic opportunities, but what are those specific building blocks? What do you see layering on over the next few years that takes you from what you are today to closer to a major global studio?
Yeah, we're putting the pieces in place. We've opened up our own consumer products and distribution division, so we no longer have to go to third parties to help monetize the shows we're setting up. It's increasing our sales. We're heavily into M&A conversations in Europe. We're heavily into build options in Asia that will allow us to produce at a lower price point, tap into a different talent market. We have over 60 now pieces of great IP coming up through the pipelines. We've increased our hires. People from Disney have joined us, working, developing that IP, getting ready to sell. We have an increasing presence in Los Angeles, which has been fantastic for us in terms of having boots on ground, networking with all of the key buyers, and then being able to execute in Canada with all the tax credits, incredible cruise at a lower price point has been a winning model. A lot of the time, the buyers get pitched great ideas and they don't know how they're going to do it. Oh, that's a great idea, but now we have to try and put it together. When Thunderbird comes to the table, they know exactly how it's going to get done. We handle shows like Spiderman, which there's no bigger piece of IP from tip to tail. We do all the writing. It's partner managed. We handle absolutely everything. The news recently about the streamers, I know there's probably some eyebrows in the audience about, well, the streamers are pulling back. Yes, but they're focusing on quality over quantity, which is what our studio is known for. We constantly, we handle major global brands. Right now, the ones I can talk about we're doing are Spiderman, Coco Melon, My Little Pony, we've done Donald Duck, 101 Dalmatians. The list goes on, and we handle that because we do it very, very well. And when we do a great job in service, it's that much easier to turn around and sell our own IP. So as streamers focus in on quality, less quantity, we stand to benefit tremendously from that. And we have great visibility with our buyers, several years out as they look to lock us up. Yeah.
Maybe we'll just keep going there because it's probably anyone who spent a decent amount of time on this business or in this industry can't help but see the headlines about Netflix. I think Bloomberg just put out an article last week that was something like the age of peak TV is ending. And so we see more and more talk of budget cuts, and the streaming growth has been such a boon to your business for the last few years. But I think many investors would probably, as they dig in, start to question, well, what's the longevity of the demand trend here? And you have a great services business, but services is a competitive business. I don't want to say it's a commodity type business, but it's subject to the whims of the buyers, and there aren't that many buyers. And it's just seen tremendous growth the last few years. So hats off to you for delivering on that. But the problem of being a public company is, it's always, well, what's next? People forget about everything you've accomplished. And so I want to talk to you about, what I guess is we've done work around services business. I think we've come to understand there's a differentiation within the service industry itself. And so maybe you could spend a bit of time talking about why you think a slowdown in budgets, a slowdown in content spend doesn't necessarily impact your business as it may impact the overall services industry in general. What's different about Thunderbird? What have you accomplished? What do you think distinguishes this business? Say, hey, there's, yes, you could read these headlines that don't necessarily impact us the same way they might impact the overall industry.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think overall, the budgets aren't going down. In fact, we're seeing some of them going up. It's just that as the streamers look to have better content, higher quality, I've heard Netflix before get compared to like an old sock drawer that you open and you find a pair of cashmere socks, but then you're also like, what are all those other things that I don't want to wade through? And so they're changing their model. We're very much a part of that in the push for quality. So the budgets are high. The shows that are getting greenlit, I can't wait to tell you over the next 6 months some of the incredible IP that we're working on, because it's amazing, and it is that high quality. We've always kept quality as our North Star. We've been recognized that through lots of awards, whatnot. And the other push that's happened is the push for diversity and inclusivity. Our company is very well known. All of the streamers have to put out content that is diverse, inclusive, resonates around the world. Our company was voted most diverse and inclusive company in British Columbia in 21. We won a Peabody Award for our work in that area. And we recently were awarded the Reconciliation Award from the Canadian government, which is a top honor and isn't a media award. This is the government looking for companies to actually recognize that are doing the right thing. Buyers want to work with us because of that. The other thing I'll say is that in terms of a recession, when people are throwing that word around, my dad used to run Robin Hood Multifoods for decades. And he always used to say recessions were good for him because people stayed home and used flour and bake and watched TV. Well, that's not going to change. People still need a happy escape, and content provides that. It is key. And the teams have done an incredible job positioning themselves in our company so that we are the go-to provider for quality, for diverse and inclusive quality. And the other, barrier to entry for exponential growth, we still say no to a lot of work because we're only as good as our last delivery. We are never going to get greedy and explode, which other companies have done. This is a measured growth, and we are going to nail this. It's key that we, don't go past our speed limit, which we haven't done and don't plan to do. So as other companies stumble, as there's less quantity being made, more talent will open up to us. I do predict in the next year or so, it's very hard to find a ton of talent, but it's going to settle a bit. That won't be our company, but we'll be able to pick up more talent as that happens from companies that sort of stumble with the push away from quantity into quality.
Do you think there's been a lot of, specifically within kids and animation, a lot of talk of the cuts at Netflix, the creative talent being let go, signed on to do huge projects. Those have all been canceled, or many of them have been canceled. Is that an opportunity for Thunderbird? I mean, do those people end up circulating, looking for partnerships to work with another studio to create something?
Absolutely. And even great talent. I know one thing, recently we hired Kitty Walsh. She was number 2 at Disney Junior. As Disney does less work internally, gives us more work. They shut down Marvel Television Studios in Los Angeles, gave us all that work at Atomic. So now we're handling it all. And when that was coming, they called and said, hey, they didn't want to lose Kitty, but why don't you guys hire her? We'd like her to land somewhere great. And so now she's with our company. She's well known as one of the preeminent preschool developers in North America. Now she's working with us, developing content. That was an amazing hire that Disney was like, we want her to land somewhere awesome. Yeah. And so now she's at Atomic. We are seeing that, our new recruiter, Brianna, that just started in Los Angeles, is from Netflix. And so she's just been hiring for Netflix. Now she's with us. The competitive advantage we have is we can produce at a lower price point because of our offshoot in Canada. We still have roots and ground in Los Angeles. And we've been handling content for the streamers from tip to tail. So we handle writers' rooms. We do absolutely everything. And that's what they need right now. as their business models shift. But what won't shift is the need for high quality content. All these people aren't going away, and they still constantly have to refresh their sites to glue subscribers.
Is there any metrics you can provide on, demand versus supply, or what you've seen in terms? I think you are fully utilized, but how do you measure, I guess, the ability to meet demand or your supply versus the demand out there today?
I mean, one metric is if you look at the last quarter, we have tripled the number of show bids and, be it IP, partner managed, or service. We have tripled over the last 3 months what we've put together compared to this time last year in 21. So it's we're not seeing a slowdown.
How do you, it sounds like you're effectively sold out. How do you choose projects from a services element? You have a bunch of people coming to you saying, I want to make something, and presumably you don't have enough animators capacity to make all those shows. So how do you decide what you want to make?
Yeah, we try and find that, the key point indicators for us would be, does it make sense from a bottom line? Now we can command a much higher margin. Are these big budget shows that are really going to benefit the bottom line so we can reinvest and keep growing? Will it turn on our talent? Talent begets talent. It's kind of like moths to a flame. So we have to find that perfect mix. Who's going to stick? And are they great clients? What do they like to work with? We're past the early years where we would work with questionable buyers. We're working with only the best of the best, because we need to make sure that we can have those right conversations. It's a creative process. We always put measures in place to make sure the company's protected in terms of, as this goes along, what if, somebody says, we want this all to be underwater. All of a sudden, we're not going to get caught anymore not being paid for those extra pivots. We want to do content that matters. So shows I can talk about, like Young Love, based on the Oscar award-winning short Hair Love with Matthew Cherry. That's a big deal. When we were at Annecy, there's a huge rollout. 1,000 people in an auditorium watching that show get rolled out alongside Into the Spider-Verse, Sony's other show, the feature. And there's, Atomic's logo right up there on the screen. And those shows matter, and that matters to us.
Is there a virtuous cycle or feedback to selling your own IP when you make a Spidey and Friends or a Lego movie or Hair Love? People know that was, Atomic did the vast majority of the work on this.
Totally, Colin. And that's why, when Moonbug comes to us and go, okay, we want to do a higher quality version of Coco Melon. That's like 440 minutes of content for Netflix.
Just what we needed. More Coco Melon.
Yeah, more Coco Melon. I know. And then they'll know we'll execute on it on a high level, get it done. But it also, when we go out to sell our toddler hit, which we're developing, and we want one of those big toddler hits because, boy, the upside can be incredible with consumer products and merch and cross-media exploitation. When we're selling it, suddenly the buyer's like, oh, they handle all of Coco Melon. Okay, so that's another tick. Okay, yes, we want to buy this IP. We're going to negotiate to keep the copyright. We're going to put some investment in, as Barb said, and we know they can do it. The buyers are being more selective about who they buy from. Yeah. When we come to the table, it's like great quality, great integrity, great culture. They execute. We were one of the only companies, and every buyer says this, that didn't stumble through all of the pandemic. We didn't miss one delivery in any area. We didn't create one cost overage for our buyers, which was a huge deal. A lot of companies came back and said, especially on the kids and family side, we need this, we need that. We didn't do any of that. That integrity and dependability and keeping quality as our North Star, that goodwill is going to last us a very, very long time. And we're going to make sure we don't blow that goodwill.
Yeah, I think it's a good segue. I mean, perhaps the most exciting part, and I think it is a big leg of the stool to becoming a major global studio, is developing your own IP within, and I should highlight this, is within animated. You develop a lot of your own IP in Unscripted today, but obviously the bulk of what you do today, animation, is scripted. Service work. And so, yeah, I think you mentioned you have 60 pieces IP coming. I don't know if that covers everything, but if we just talked about your animation IP pipeline today, what's in the pipeline in terms of the number of projects? And again, we don't have to get specific on what they are. We understand there's only so much you can say publicly before they've been announced, but just be helpful to get a framework around how big is this near to medium term pipeline of animated IP?
Oh my goodness, it's 30 projects and growing. We've got offers in on several projects. It's really, as much as I say to buyers, can I talk about this? Because it would really help my IR. They're like, we don't care about your IR.
Yeah.
They'd rather do a big splash, which I get. So it's really maddening. We're working with, 2 buyers right now on when we can PR as soon as possible, because we do want to do right by all of our shareholders. I see many people on the line today that have stuck by us, and we want to do right by everyone. We want to make this worth everyone's while. So all of our stakeholders, our employees, our shareholders, we hold, we're working for you guys. That's our mindset. We want to hit this out of the park, but unfortunately we can't always announce.
When does it start to hit? Because again, the problem also of even, investors understanding the story is back to the point of we don't actually see, it's very hard to see this going on in the numbers, because it's going to be one quarter where you deliver a big show and you get it all then. And so when would you expect the animation IP to start hitting the numbers?
Oh my gosh. I'd say 23, 24, increasingly 25. The problem with it is it takes a long time to make these, and because you get paid upon delivery and they want to announce a couple of months before it lands so that everyone's like, oh my God, I'm so excited for the show. It doesn't get lost in the translation.
Yeah.
That therein lies our issue.
Yeah. Got it. I guess, look, it's exciting. Obviously, it's more profitable to own content. You trade at a higher multiple when you own content versus being a services studio, I think, if the market is actually differentiating Thunderbird on that basis. But it's also not without risk. So, you can make a show and no one could be interested. And I'm curious what gives you confidence in terms of your success rate and selling hit rates of what you have produced, because I would talk about Last Kids on Earth, but if we look back, investors trying to do their work today, they could see Last Kids on Earth. Beat Bugs, I think, was your show as well. That was a while ago. But there hasn't been much in the way of animated IP. And so, what are the odds how do you have confidence that you actually can make anything that somebody wants to buy?
Yeah, well, I think we bet on the people, and I believe anyone who does their homework will know, and not because of Barb and I, but the reputation of the company is through the roof based on the talent we have. It's really second to none. Shows like Last Kids, we own the entertainment forevermore. So every September, there's a #1 best-selling book that comes out. Last year, it was on the top above Harry Potter, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Captain Underpants. There's 10 more to come. We own every piece of entertainment that exists with that. So the story is still going. There's some amazing talks of new forms of Last Kids. We're still selling the toys, the video games from the first animated series, the interactive. And, sometimes these things are years in the making, unfortunately. Look at SpongeBob. It was something that everyone liked, but it took 3 or 4 years to catch fire. So you just don't know exactly, but every time we get up to plate, to go back to your baseball analogy, we try and have the stars and the moons align. And, when Frank Juster sends me a text, it'll be like, just keep doing what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing. It'll happen. It's the law of averages.
Yeah.
What he always says. And I believe it. And we've got the board behind us now. We've really transitioned to a board of more subject matter experts. Our board chair is Marnie Weifschafer. She was CFO of Lionsgate, did transition it from Canada to US. There's our model with Frank. We have Linda Michelson, who's one of the preeminent M&A lawyers in Los Angeles on our board. We have Jerome Levy now on our board, who's the vice chair of Archie Comics. We, brought out that Riverdale, huge brand. We've really got some good governance now in terms of our quest to where we're going, which is really exciting.
And so I think you said, roughly 30 IP productions in animation. Have those all been sold? Are they sold before you begin, or they're in some very early stage where you haven't necessarily sold them to a customer?
Some have been sold,
Yeah.
some have not. Again, the reason we've been able to keep a pretty clean balance sheet is a lot of companies will find a piece of IP and then spend millions developing it. They'll do a whole pilot. That's beautiful. We don't do that. We'll only ever spend $150,000, $200,000 getting a show ready. Luckily, we have a massive body of work behind us. So, if people want to see more from us, it's like, look at our library. We take calculated swings. And then if we bring it out, if we get a sale, amazing. We can have the buyer at the table with us throughout. If we don't, that's our only risk to write off. So it allows us to get more quickly. And because of the work that already exists, we don't have to prove ourselves to anyone in terms of what we're capable of. And I think you have a better chance of a sale. People see a hint of an idea, they get it. And then going into a development period with your buyer, they're happier throughout. You have less problems. They start funding the development. You don't have to spend all that money. It's a win-win all around.
Is there an industry, like what's a good close rate on, you do 100 pitches and you sell 3 of them or 5 of them or 20 of them or 50 of them?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at our factual, Great Pacific, Atomic, and opportunistically and scripted, Reginald the Vampire, something we can talk about, that we fully own that copyright. It's going to Sci-Fi, Amazon, Hulu, a big US facing scripted brand. We're definitely batting over 80%.
Wow. That's great. The one thing you mentioned on licensing, obviously, that is a grand slam. You make a PJ Masks or a SpongeBob or a Paw Patrol, even though the world doesn't need another Paw Patrol. But if you did that, that would be great for all of us.
That would be the goal.
That's those are very low odds events, but they are possible. But you made the decision to actually build. You have Last Kids, and there's a video game, there's some toys, but it's not like you have a very big licensing franchise, a lot of IP to take to market today necessarily. But you've made the decision to build out this licensing division. Yeah, you've made a key hire. Maybe just talk about that for a minute, why you decided to do that now. And also in the near term, as the IP pipeline is building, are there other ways for that organization to generate, revenue, EBITDA for the company that doesn't necessarily involve turning an IP project you've made into some consumer products line?
Absolutely. So we are acting as third-party distributor. There should be an announcement on a show coming out in the next 2 weeks that we don't have to make, but we're distributing for other companies that need that capability. So it is another growth revenue line for our company. Having that division now, right from the beginning on some shows that will be announced, hopefully soon. We've already got toy lines set up, video game lines set up. We get those right when the sale happens. And then we're making the shows we're working with the toy company right from the beginning. So which characters should we feature? Which ones do you think will be toys? And so it's, we're not making a commercial because we want to make entertainment that really sings and that parents and family, kids can enjoy at the same time. But it's very strategic. And now we have those capabilities. Here's the main characters we're going to put into this show. We already know it's going to be the toy line, and the video game is already working on scenes with us that we can export in. So that's underway. And before, we used to have to put give away 30% to a distribution company to distribute it for us. Now we keep that extra 30% because we do it in-house.
Got it. Well, we should talk about, another big part of business, which is Unscripted and Great Pacific. But before we go, before we move on to that, maybe of the shows you can potentially talk about that are in your IP pipeline, what are you most excited about?
Gosh, shows that have been announced that we're developing. Mermacorno Tokidoki is a good one. Dead Man's Curse on the factual side is a good one. Though I'm trying to think, of Princesses Wear Pants. We know, a significant piece of that merch. And that's something that is exciting because anyone with young kids knows how popular that type of genre can be. It's our buyers only princess show to go head to head with Disney's entire princess line. So there's huge excitement around that. Some of the pieces coming together for that could be our triple, maybe our home run. There's more to come that unfortunately I can't speak of, but it's exciting.
Good. Let's move to got about 20 minutes left, to Unscripted. Great Pacific Media. I think you actually technically renamed the segment or the division recently from factual to unscripted. Was there a reason for that?
Yeah, just because we're handling different types of property through that. And I think the divisions will start to mesh. Anyone that we acquire is going to be X company, a part of Thunderbird, a Thunderbird company. On our kids and family side, we're starting to do scripted work. So that's exciting. Some of the properties that we own make more sense in live action. So we're really just trying not to be so narrow in the focus with the content that we own. What's the best way to present it? We have all capabilities. What will allow it to sing and have the best chance of being a giant hit? So it's just really in terms of the producing medium, it's open, and we can produce in animation, we can produce factual, we can produce scripted. We have all the capabilities. What serves each property best?
It's somewhat related. I was going to ask you. So I think you delivered or will deliver 7 or 8 shows, I think, in this fiscal year, or the fiscal year that I think it's already closed, within Great Pacific or Unscripted. And I guess the question, you've renamed it. When I look at the business, I think when a lot of investors look at the business, they might say like, oh, this is a very nice cash flowing business, high margins, steady renewals, and a really exciting way to fund this animation studio. But I'm curious how you look at it, at Unscripted, as an objective to grow that business. What's your capacity today in terms of number of shows you could be producing? And really, how do you manage Unscripted versus the animation studio?
Yeah, I think, they're very synergistic, and I'm sure a lot of the, people calling in have heard me talk about that. All of the streamers are trying to glue that key co-viewing audience, which is essentially families at home watching content. All of the data analytics show they're much less likely to subscribe and unsubscribe when families are watching. What do families watch? Unscripted, like kind of documentary style, and animation. So there we have 2 great boxes together. The growth for Great Pacific is amazing. We've mostly been able to hold on to all of our own IP, sell to Canadian buyers, and then have second windows on Netflix and whatnot. But we're taking the same model that worked for Atomic, having a presence in Los Angeles, having more US facing sales, doing more service as well. It's highly profitable. We don't do any service, but we can. And continuing to expand the division in that manner, which is underway, is really exciting. We also had a great new hire. You may have seen Sean Connolly, big reputation in Canada throughout E1, developing more content for us that won't just be selling to Canadian buyers, but US buyers that we own, as well as why don't we service something like an American Idol? We haven't done that before, but having a presence in Los Angeles to hit that service that needs ticked will also be a great growth vertical for us.
So you think creating I call it an American show, but I don't know what the equivalent of trucks driving off the highway, which is very popular in Canada, is there something like that that you can do in the US to sell first rights to US streamers or US broadcasters?
Yeah, we definitely can, we've had conversations with like California Wildfire, like the the same sort of perfect mix of hardworking people dealing with weather or challenging events. It's a format actually that can translate. Sure, we do the Coca-Cola in British Columbia. It is the gift that keeps on giving. The ratings are constantly through the roof. But there's the I-5, there's the Weather Network loves that kind of stuff. So it's not our only format, and you'll start to see more expansion out of that, like Dead Man's Curse with History Channel, whatnot, is different, and there's more to come. I mean, it's the talent, as we've been adding to the development team talent on kids and family side, we've done the same. So we're investing in people. We have large groups on both Great Pacific and Atomic, whose whole job is just to find, lift, and set up that IP. And again, we do it in a very low risk manner. We're not spending millions of dollars on each IP. We're taking it to a certain point and we're taking it out to sale. If we get a sale, amazing. If not, our write-off risk is very low.
Is there I guess, do you expect that production volume to grow at Great Pacific Media over time? You're at 8-ish shows today. Is there capacity to do more?
Absolutely. And that's part of, we're looking at both our main drivers equally, as well as we're increasing presence in, how we've looked at opportunities and we looked at scripted. We're increasing presence there as well. There's some great growth strategy to come, having a bigger presence in Los Angeles. But we're going to do it our way, stay true to our value system. You can look at other companies that, scripted makes some investors trepidatious because they can look at other companies who've taken too big swings. We're taking swings, but calculated swings. We're making sure we're up to plate.
Yeah. Unscripted, if anyone's unfamiliar, Thunderbird produced Games Convenience, which was a huge success in Canada. I think maybe the number 2 comedy in Canada behind Schitt's Creek. And it aired on Netflix in the US and it was popular there as well. And then it unexpectedly was canceled by the show's creator. And now you have Stray, and then there was a spin-off, Strays, which I think is in its 2nd season now. And now you have Reginald the Vampire premiering, I think this year on Sci-Fi. So, you have, it seems to be some decent, success, even great success. Kim's was cut short, perhaps. Is scripted a strategic focus? It's always kind of been off to the side as, we do this also, but I don't see it as having a division. I don't see it as having a name even. I'm like, is it part of Great Pacific Media? What is it? Is that an objective to make scripted more of a strategic focus for the company?
Yeah, part of being a major global studio, I think, is having that leg of the stool. It will have its own name. We are working with some very high-end people in Los Angeles to construct a more earnest, swing at that division, but not in a way where we're going to spend millions of dollars lifting IP that may or may not go. I think we're approaching it in a really smart manner. And I'm really excited about what's coming together.
Was Reginald, I guess that is the risk of scripted. The budgets are huge. And if you waste too much kind of getting it off, getting the pilot going, whatever, it ends up being just a huge waste of money. How was Reginald done? Was it you optioned the book? You came up with a story, how far along before you got a buyer? How much did you have to put in? I don't know if you can say that, but just extent of how is that at all different from what you do on the animation side when it comes to that?
No, it's a similar low risk manner. We get something together, we develop it to a certain point, we get a sale, then we start making it. Our scripted division, it was lucky and it wasn't visionary from Barb and I, it was more serendipitous that we didn't have a huge footprint in scripted over the last couple of years, because those are the productions that did give us some headaches. Getting 200 people on a film set during COVID was hard. And it hurt a lot of studios. Luckily, where we did have, I'll be honest, overages on all of our scripted shows that we were able to manage because of COVID testing, people going down, didn't affect our company like it did others, where entire productions were shut down for weeks at a time and you're still paying people and whatnot. There's always going to be a need for scripted content. We want to stay true to form. We are increasing presence in there, looking more of it from having a Los Angeles base, so that we're working right with the top buyers. We still have our great Canadian sales ecosystem, but in our push to be a major global studio, we need to be doing more than that, which we are.
Yeah. We've got a few minutes left. I want to cover, I've got probably a topic you hear all the time. And now that I've got you on the screen, we can talk about it again. But yeah, there are. It's not hard to do the math and say that Thunderbird trades at a discount to fair value. To buy a business like this that's growing like this with this financial profile for sub 6 times EBITDA for a decent free cash yield is rare these days, even after the sell-off and everything. And I think one thing investors struggle with perhaps is actually just forecasting the business and thinking about how it might grow. It's very easy to see how fast it has grown, but now we have concerns about the macro, we have concerns about the streamers pulling back. And so what does the future really look like? You've been hesitant to guide historically, annually even. And so I want to maybe, other than I think you've said this year is a build year, so the growth has been slower, although when we add it all up, still looks like it's very respectable growth, even in a build year. And so I wanted to ask you, have your thoughts evolved on guidance? How do you think about it? What are the pros and cons of creating a framework to help investors think about the future and, becoming a major global studio?
It is a great question, Cullen, and we are planning to have an investor day in October, so we'll be sending save the dates in Vancouver, where hopefully we can have a more intensive look at the business. So that's underway. The reason we've been hesitant on guidance because sometimes great things will happen, like a show. Our year ends June 30th. A show that was going to deliver and be recognized in June. We're finishing the production, and the buyer goes, "You know what? This is an amazing show. We don't want it to. It has to also to qualify to be recognized. It has to air. We don't want to air it in June. We want to air it in September. That's a much bigger fall launch. So here's a piece of good creative news. It's going to be highlighted in their September fall lineup, but suddenly it moves out of our fiscal. So if we're giving exact guidance and that happens, it's actually a good news story for us emotionally and creatively, but terrible for our fiscal. And trying to explain that to everyone, people will be like, well, we don't care. What happened to the guidance? So we're trying to avoid things like that that are beyond our control in this industry, but could really upset the apple cart. So we are hoping to have a more fulsome look at, financial guardrails in our October event in Vancouver. Hope everyone listening might want a trip to Vancouver. Whistler won't be open, but you could ski the glacier, and try and manage it in those regards. We just don't want to say something and then have something like that happen and then let people down.
Sure. Well, yeah, I think you had it. Kim's was unexpected, obviously. So it can happen. I would, and we talked about this, I would reiterate, public markets investors are, they are forgiving. As harsh as we may seem sometimes, I think we all have the ability to read through and see unforeseen events and look past them at times, and within the context of what is this industry and what's likely to happen. But I think building a model for a $150 million market cap company, US dollars, something like that, this is not an easy endeavor. There's a lot of things you got to put down and figure out how to build. Barb shaking her head like, yeah, I do these numbers. It's like, watch how long it's taking to close the books at the end of the year. And so I think, giving people some guardrails, as you said, to help think about what is the trajectory of this business is very helpful. Even if it's not specifically this year, we will grow EBITDA X%. I think that's probably actually not that helpful. So again, hopefully we'll see something like that in October. We got a few minutes left. I wanted to hit one more really important topic, which is M&A. You had talked a lot about it. I think it's really interesting opportunity, and based on our own diligence of kind of fact checking things you say in your approach, it seems to resonate with a lot of industry participants, the value of doing M&A. So maybe you could just speak briefly about, what are the synergies? You've been looking in Europe. You talked about maybe organic build in Asia, but what are the operational synergies of finding a smaller studio in Europe and acquiring it? What does that do for you?
Yeah, and we're pretty far down the road into due diligence, which is great. So, streamers need to produce content. They need to increase subscriptions. They've all publicly said our main buyers, Disney, Netflix, HBO Max, Paramount. They need to expand into Europe, Southeast Asia to increase their subscribers. They can't just feed those areas content from North America. That's not going to work. A lot of the countries there have rules. Hey, if you want to stream here, a certain percentage of what you stream needs to be native to this region. They are trying to outsource more and condense and work with more trusted partners like us. So by us having ownership in an area like the UK, for example, we can produce content that's native to those regions, develop more content with other key talent bases, increase capacity. If we look at studios like ours, there's amazing companies doing amazing things with hundreds of people, access to different talent base. Suddenly we're growing in that regard. Every time we set up another piece of IP, we can run it through our burgeoning consumer products and distribution division. Plus countries like Europe, if they've got a footprint in France or UK, there's great tax credits similar to Canada's that we could tap into. Great buyers. Suddenly we're setting a show up with the BBC, with France Television. Then we're pulling into different ways of financing these shows so that we can retain ownership, so that we're not just doing a big streamer buyout. That really opens up a lot of doors for us. It doesn't mean that it won't stream. It just means we set it up and hold on to the copyright. Yeah.
Do you think, presumably this is somebody smaller than you, a fraction of the size, quarter, half, whatever it might be, less than half. A studio like that, the ability to sell, your success rate selling their content or their future content to the global streamers, all of which are US companies with an LA presence, does that make it easier? You think it increases the odds of them finding, signing on a Netflix or an HBO or a Disney to buy that content versus their odds of success as an independent studio in France or the UK?
Absolutely. And, we're talking to the streamers about who we're looking at. What do you think of this? What do you think of that? And they're like, oh, that would be amazing. We're being very strategic about this. They know what we're doing because we want it to make sense for our buyers too. And they've been working with some of these companies. They just don't have the bandwidth to manage it all. So us coming in, owning it, they've got one-stop shop dealing with Thunderbird, based in Los Angeles. It's huge for these companies to suddenly get a base in LA and have, we can look at the capacity as one massive, like, what is Canada bringing to the table? What is Europe bringing to the table? It really is exciting, to that growth.
Great. Now let's take it one more. Came in via the chat. We talked about, you said the recession word. There's been obviously a lot of things spilled about what's happening. I think hiring talent in animators in Canada has been very hard. It's, you're sold out of animators almost. Have you seen already any impacts from what's going on with the economic situation out here in Canada in terms of ability to find talent or retain talent in an environment like this?
I think we are lucky because we've always focused on culture. You can look at something like Atomic's Glassdoor reviews. It's through the roof compared to other companies as a tangible metric. So we're still benefiting from all that goodwill. Our mindset is we're working for the people. We don't want anyone to feel like a number. We want to create a safe environment where innovation can happen. That's still very much our reputation. But I'd be lying to say it isn't harder right now to get talent. So we're doing all these different things and having show days. We're calling, our on-site is the new off-site, like gathering people together and watching dailies and doing things and creating a work-life balance that's flexible for people. We spend a lot of time there. What will happen is, my prediction is, again, the push away from mass amounts of quantity to quality, which is, we're at the top of the list. Again, not because of Barb and I, if that sounds arrogant. The teams are doing amazing work. Anyone who does our research will find out the reputation is through the roof. As other companies stumble, and not that I wish any ill will on people, but it will happen over the next 9 months. It won't happen to us. More talent will become available. We also spend a ton of time, any city that we're in, where you invest right in high schools. We've got scholarships. We're sitting on all the boards of the major universities. We're setting their curriculum. This is a long-term swing. We want every team to look like that perfect sports team. We need our experience, we need our mid, we need our junior. One thing that's happened over the pandemic, not a lot of juniors were able to get to mid-level because they didn't have that studio immersion experience. So we're kind of seeing that missing mid-level experience, or we're working hard on shoring up right now. So has it been a challenge? Yes. Could we have taken way more shows if talent was abundant? Absolutely. We were careful not to go past our speed limit. We do say no to work. We want to say yes to more. Talent is key to that, and we're working very hard on continuing to cultivate it.
Great. It reminds me, I encourage people to do their own work, and I think the reputation shines through every time you talk to people in this industry who've worked with or around Atomic and Thunderbird. You hear about the reputation, and someone even told me Atomic was one of the only, like the second time in his career that an animation studio ever turned him down when offering up a job, and it was because you thought you couldn't deliver on the quality of the project in the time frame that they wanted. And he still this day, actually, to just talked about it as, this just doesn't happen. Service studios don't turn down work like this. And he had immense respect for your ability to walk away from business feeling like you couldn't do a good job on it.
And it doesn't make them go away. It just makes them want you more, because
right.
You have to execute.
Yep. Well, great. It's been over an hour. This has been just awesome. So thank you again for the time. Hopefully it was informative, helpful for people, and to the investors on the call who haven't spoken with Jen and Barb, I encourage you to reach out. They're accessible, and Barb can help you with a financial model, which involves a whole lot of jiggering of numbers and such. But we appreciate the time. So thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much, Cullen and SumZero, for highlighting us. And please do, anyone listening in, if you want to reach out directly, we love that. I'm happy to have a call anytime, and really appreciate everyone's time this morning. Thank you.
Great. Take care.
Take care. Bye.